Mantra 3. Questions and Answers. Question 1. How do I consistently focus on the right thing when wrong things are happening in my life? What is the point of acceptance when the unthinkable is happening? Let us say you hear that a terrorist attack just took place in your city. You switch on the television and receive confirmation that many people have lost their lives in the event. In such a situation, what would you immediately think of? What would you be feeling? Most people answer that their first thoughts are that it should not have happened and that they do not want to be the victims the next time. They undergo feelings of anger, resentment, helplessness, revenge, or fear. Even if they are mild, such feelings do arise. In a survey taken by several hundred people, not one said they would feel peaceful if this were to occur. But this is when a peaceful mind is most crucial. Mr. and Mrs. Tony have been married for years. Mr. Tony has a bad temper and shouts when he becomes upset. When he shouts, Mrs. Tony feels miserable and begins to cry. The more she cries, the more he shouts. This happens almost every week. If Mrs. Tony were to come to you and describe this situation, what advice would you give her? You would probably advise her to stay calm whenever Mr. Tony shouts. She should not aggravate the situation, but should calmly tell him that such behavior is not acceptable. You will tell her that there is no point in being miserable and that acting proactively would put an end to the vicious cycle of yelling. It is during negative incidents that peace is most required. Unfortunately, these are also the times when peaceful feelings are least generated. Rather than resenting the occurrence itself, accept the incident calmly and rationally. Say a prayer and keep your thoughts calm. This is the greatest contribution you can make as a bystander. It is when wrong things are happening that focusing on happiness and peace are most important. This is when you need to shift to the source. Question 2. It is easy to be focused on the right thing when I am not responsible. When something happens to someone else, it is easier to accept. However, when the problem happens to me, it is difficult to defocus. What should I do when I find myself unable to shift my attention from the negative? Let us return to the previous example and say that you are the leader of a city that has fallen victim to a terrorist attack. In this case, your acceptance of the situation is even more important. When you accept the incident, you are not condoning it. Instead, you should calmly and rationally take action. What do you think is the best way to handle any situation in an agitated and unhappy mental frame, or a calm and peaceful state of mind? You would probably choose the latter. When you are facing great difficulties, focusing on happiness is even more important because the key to remaining calm is acceptance. Whenever we do not accept something, the denial creates frustration and anger, which results in irrational aggression. How does this affect the way we work? Thinking irrationally is like tying one hand behind your back and trying to solve a problem one-handed. It is utter foolishness. Rational thinking tells us that when a problem arises, use both your hands to solve it. After accepting the situation, your resolve will be clearer, and the situation will be much easier for you. If your first step is not correct, all the other steps could fall apart. When we are faced with a problem, we immediately generate negative feelings and attempt to solve it as quickly as possible. However, When standing on a platform of negativity, a quick fix usually does not work. Actions arising from negative feelings usually make the situation worse. When things don't work, we believe that taking more actions will solve the problem. But this only further complicates matters. Then what could have been done easily becomes a huge wave of fruitless effort that yields no positive outcome. There are many people who go for job interviews even though they already have a job, in order to discover their personal market value. And some of the same people say that if they lost their job and then went for an interview, they would make a mess of it. If they stutter and stammer their way through the ordeal, it is because they arrive for the second interview with their baggage of negative feelings, which only further generate negative energy. When we accept the situation, the vortex of negative energy ceases to exist. Mental clarity is once again achieved, and new avenues become visible. Learners of a new language usually go through an important step before they become fluent. They tell themselves that it is all right to make mistakes. When they do this, they become bolder and better at the new language. If they haven't undergone this step, they focus on their mistakes and fumble through incoherent sentences. The more you focus on mistakes, the more mistakes you will make. Accepting your mistakes stops this overanalyzing of negative and produces positive effects. Question 3. By accepting and shifting my focus away from the negative, am I not running away from the situation? Many people misconstrue acceptance as running away from the situation. Acceptance is not about fleeing, it is about flying. It is about taking flight because you are no longer chained to the negative energy trying to trap you. Acceptance does not mean giving up. Rather, it provides the means to achieve the goal. If we find that certain milestone cannot be achieved, then accepting that we may not reach them helps us to find new ways of reaching our final goals. It does not mean we are quitting altogether. Not accepting the situation could lead to the choice of the wrong road or even getting distracted by our own blindness. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us about dispassionate action. Most people question how to be dispassionate. Acceptance is the answer. It forces you to stop being emotionally attached to your goal and moves you from simply yearning for your goal to focusing on your aim. It moves you from forcing yourself to freeing yourself, to acting the way the situation demands. Whatever you focus on will multiply in your life. When you resist the negative outcome, you are actually focusing on the negative and attracting negativity. When you accept the negative, you no longer resist it and are free from it. Thus, acceptance is not about running away from the outcome. It is about choosing a new outcome, because you are no longer constrained by the negative energy caused by resisting the inevitable.